Modern smartphones are products of countless hours of design and engineering to craft them into the glamorous and shiny objects that they are, but they are not built to survive the more challenging environments that tradesmen, engineers, emergency service personnel and more find themselves in. Many phones from Apple, Samsung, HTC and Sony all died an early death whilst working within these tougher industries. Protecting this with a case is all possible, but a chunky case detracts from the design. Those that really survive are often big and bulky and unattractive. Cat stepped in with a happy medium 12 months ago that offered a mid-range specification with a design that is not unsightly but can withstand the water, knocks and bumps. A year on and the B15Q has now arrived, offering identical robustness but improved specifications, bringing it up to speed with mobile devices of today. The specs are in line with many of the best-selling phones today. There might be scope for further improvement, but the impact will be on the price and practicality for many. The B15Q appears to strike an ideal balance. So how does the B15Q differ from last year's B15? Aesthetically, there is no difference apart from on the back cover. That is now home to the camera flash and tweaked speaker grille. The B15Q now has Android 4.4 as opposed to 4.1. The processor is increased to 1.3 GHz quad-core from 1 GHz dual-core, and the RAM has doubled to 1 GB. The internal memory and display remain the same, as does the microSD memory card slot, although there is support for 64GB cards now. Bluetooth has jumped to version 4 from 3, and the camera now has an LED flash. The B15Q is not the prettiest. Yes, it's a little chunky, but big can be beautiful, right? Unlike similar devices, the B15 is not wrapped in inches of rubber or adorned in colours that could pass as high visibility. A few yellow accents with the buttons make this stand out from others, and the screws on the casing give a tough look to the handset, but it does not, in my opinion, detract too much from the overall design. There are covers over the ports which fit tightly to ensure the IP67 rating, but they are not so flimsy or tight that when opened they will easily break. On the right side, nestled between the volume keys, is a button that with a long press turns the camera flash on and off to be used as a flashlight. A short press on the button will also activate the phone screen, like the power button, and it does too act as a camera shutter button. Measuring 125 by 69.5 by 14.95mm and 170 grams in weight, this phone is by no means diminutive, but it is smaller than the more industry-recognised Motorola Solutions products that are also about 4 times the price and do not run Google Android. It also receives the military 810G standard, able to survive temperatures between -20 to positive 55 degrees Celsius, and drops onto concrete from heights of 1.8 meters, not forgetting surviving immersion in fresh water for up to 30 minutes at a depth of 1 meter. With a resolution of 480 by 800, the screen on the B15Q will not blow you away, and watching back high-quality HD footage is not something that you'll be doing here. However, for browsing the internet, making calls, sending texts, writing some emails and calculating measurements and more, then this is perfectly acceptable. Compare it to the flagship Sony, HTC or Samsung phones, and yes, the difference will be noticeable. The B15Q has Corning Gorilla Glass, which is tougher and more resistant to damage and scratches. Our phones often come into contact with keys, loose change and other things that can leave their mark on the screen. Gorilla Glass will as best as possible resist these marks and other impacts. If it gets a little dirty, just give it a wash under the tap. Whilst under the pressure of running water, the screen can go a little wild, there is no need to dry it or your hands, as wet finger tracking helps the screen to work better even when water residue is still on the device. In practice, there is an improvement to a point over other IP-rated phones, but human nature often has us wipe the worst off the phone or our hands before using the screen again. However, getting caught in a rain shower and you should be fine, and the screen remains reasonably responsive. At 4 inches, the screen is smaller than many of the newer phones we see arriving on the market today, but the B15Q offers a screen size that is practical. It can be easily held in the hand, but is still big enough that you can easily do all the things you require on screen. A built-in light sensor can automatically adjust the backlight if you want, or you can manually set to a brightness of your preference. Whilst there is no one phone which is superb in bright sunlight, the B15Q does struggle slightly. In direct sunlight, it can be a bit difficult, and it will likely be that you'll need to shield the screen to see the screen contents in detail. Stock Android is a term that refers to Android being as Google intended it to be without any additional tweaks or customization from the manufacturer of the phone. Some customization can add real value to you, whilst other additions and changes may affect the experience and leave unwanted content on the phone. The B15Q is virtually stock, with the only apparent addition being the SwiftKey keyboard. As a result, the performance is fairly slick and it's not bulked up with unnecessary apps and features you will not use. With full access to Google Play Store, you can add any apps you then choose to the device and personalise the handset in a way that you feel fit. Change the wallpapers, ringtones, the home screen layout and more, put apps in a folder and make the phone yours. The aforementioned SwiftKey is an aftermarket keyboard that is very widely used and Cat have included for free as a little value added extra, which should give an improved keyboard layout and performance. Included also is a file manager, which is useful for accessing content and sharing and managing files and folders, an FM radio, and of course all the standard Google services. Powered by a quad-core processor and 1GB of RAM, the general performance on the B15Q was acceptable. Really pushed the phone with lots of demanding tasks at once, and there was a little lag. Try playing some more demanding games and the experience may not be perfect, but generally we give the B15Q the thumbs up here. With a SIM card inserted, the B15Q can make and receive calls, send text messages, and with a mobile data plan, you can use the phone network to connect to the internet, social media and more. The B15Q has quad-band connectivity and tri-band 3G, which ensures support around most of the world for voice and data connectivity. Seeing as the B15Q is the next generation of tough phone, it's a shame to see that 4G has not been included. Wi-Fi is included, so when in the office, at home or in a wireless zone, you can connect to the internet this way and benefit from the increased speeds Wi-Fi brings. Disappointingly, the newer but increasingly popular 5 GHz frequency is not supported, only 2.4 GHz, which is the most common. Whether you need to make a call or send an email with image attachments, in the majority of scenarios you'll be able to do so without issue. Mobile network signal tended to pick up pretty well, not the best, but by no means bad. The addition of 4G and 5G Wi-Fi would have been great and given the B15Q that extra edge. Whilst not demanded so much here in the UK, one other addition that could go some way to make it more desirable would have been push-to-talk technology. Being able to hear the caller or whatever you are playing from your phone speakers is important, but on a building site it can be quite noisy, so being able to hear someone on the phone becomes even more important. Thankfully, the B15Q has a good earpiece and loud rear speaker, which can't really be muffled unless you're actively trying to do so. In fact, I was quite surprised by the rear speaker. Not only was it reasonably loud, but clear. With a variety of media, it did not really sound like it was struggling, and it certainly did not sound weak or tinny. For a phone of this type, it delivered a very admirable performance here. I had not expected the camera to have so many options or controls as it did. It certainly is not the most minimal of camera interfaces that I have seen, but it's not the most complete or organised, but functional nonetheless. With a 5-megapixel camera on the back and a VGA on the front, the B15Q is perhaps a little under par here when you consider 8, 13 and 16 are becoming more common. An 8-megapixel rear camera would have perhaps been even better. However, with many of us viewing photos back on the screen rather than an actual printed image, is it that important? The addition of flash on the Q goes some way to improving images over the original B15. There are various shooting modes within the camera so that you can get more from it, along with quite a few settings for both camera stills and video recording. You can change the exposure, colour effect, white balance, HDR, flash, voice capture, say cheese and it'll take a picture, face detection, self-timer, continuous shooting, ISO, time-lapse option and more. Such controls put me in good mood for potential results, but maybe I should not have got my hopes up. The image results really were a bit hit and miss. They capture the scene but lack a level of colour, vibrancy and detail that would normally pull you in. Whites were often overexposed and darker colours appeared dull. There was a lack of sharpness and detail that many cameras give. Zoom in and the image quickly becomes pixelated. They might not have been the best photos, but the shot is still passable. Shots in darker environments surprise me even without the flash. Writing off the camera I am not, but it's just not quite up to where it should be. Software updates may help, as might manual tweaking of the settings. All my photos were taken in auto mode really, with no playing about with the settings, as I believe this is how most of us capture images. The video was on par with the images, with the colour balance being off. The microphone picked up a lot of wind noise when there was really not that much wind. To get the best results, touching the screen to focus during recording was a big help. There is 4x digital zoom. You have to pinch and zoom on screen to take advantage of it. It works, but using the volume keys to do this would be nice, but sadly this option does not exist. You can use the torch key as a camera shutter button, which is a bit of a bonus. And lastly, as a bit of a saving grace, there are some nice editing tools available for a bit of post-shot creativity to make it look a bit better. With 2000 mAh to get through, the B15Q will last a working day. The lower resolution display becomes a bonus when it comes to battery drain, and you can leave home in the morning and be confident, unless you're using it for power-intensive tasks like navigating, that the phone will still have power when you get home. It is capable of 16 hours of talk time, and as such could last you 2 working days. But I would not like to be without a phone if I relied on it for business, so for safety's sake, charge it overnight. On jobs you're often away from the power, and although the micro USB connectivity makes it simple to charge, it's not always practical. The B15 was strong on battery performance, and the improved specs seem to have had little impact on that on the 15Q. The B15Q has a specification to compare with normal smartphones available on the high street, but they do not have the same desirability because they are less robust. The B15Q is considerably more practical than a device designed specifically for industry from the likes of Motorola, Intermec and so on. The B15Q has its own little space in the market. It is for those who need a smartphone that is capable of everyday smartphone tasks, but can also survive tougher conditions that it will be used in. Whilst we all desire the best, often it's not necessary or affordable. The B15Q performs well on the main phone and smart elements, with a pleasing speaker but a poor camera experience. If you're in and out of a van, dropping your phone, leaving it on the side, in a toolbox, in a utility belt, on top of the pile of building materials, then this could very well be your next smartphone. It does not claim to be the next best thing. It does not scream "look at me." It quietly sits there and becomes a reliable workhorse, and that is what you need to keep you and your business functional.